Welcome to the Schuby Show, where Carson Schubert interviews national and local sports personalities and more. Now, please be seated and get ready for some more never-ending nonsense with yours truly, Schuby.
This is the Schuby Show with yours truly, Carson Schubert. And today we are joined by former Central Lyon George Little Rock head coach Toby Lorenzen. And Coach Lorenzen was the coach for 22 seasons of the Central Lyon George Little Rock Lions and led them to 170 wins and a 170-70 record through his career. And of course, winning the 2006 Class 2A state title, taking them to a total of 5 state championship games. And Coach Lorenzen, it is a pleasure to have you on the podcast today. How have you been doing during this pandemic?
I'm doing fine, Shub. It's a pleasure to be on. You and I go back way long time ago, and I'm getting by like everybody else is, and staying safe, and it's just a pleasure to come on and talk.
Absolutely. Of course, for those that most of the people probably listening do know, but those of you that don't, Coach Lorenzen also teaches physical education at Central Lyon, and of course I was able to be under him in PE for a number of years, so we had many good times back then, and it seems like it's been a while. It's been 5 years already, Coach, since I've graduated high school, so maybe that makes you feel older. I don't know.
Yeah. It's funny. I see so many people around town that are that I've had their kids, and I've also had them as students or athletes. So you're only as old as you feel. And I always tell people that I'm doing the best job I could possibly find, because this job keeps me young.
There you go. And of course, Coach Lorenzen has been the strength and conditioning coach in the past, as well as coaching girls track and field at Central Lyon. And Coach, let's just talk a little bit first about where you grew up, and tell us a little bit about how you got into sports as well.
Okay, well, I grew up in born and raised in Lamars, Iowa, all the way through from kindergarten through 12th grade. It's pretty easy how I became a sports lover and wanted to get into sports. My dad was a coach. My dad coached at Lamar's from the 60s up through the early 90s. He was also athletic director there, and we were just around sports all the time. Every recollection I have usually revolves around sports and something to do with sports. He coached football, track, started the wrestling program there, coached baseball, coached some girls sports. So yeah. I grew up around sports. I played 4 sports in high school, all the way through football, basketball, baseball, and track. Probably had my best success in track and football. Was able to stick around. Played 4 years at Westmar College. I was able to get a scholarship for football and track there, and small NAIA school that's no longer around, but had a lot of memories, met a lot of good people, played with a lot of good players, and so that's kind of just my start, and why I wanted to be involved with sports.
And you also, as you said, went to Westmar College, and you ended up, after graduating in 1986, you went to the Upper Iowa University in Fayette, and you did some coaching there, and that's kind of when you got your start in coaching, right?
Yeah, I was lucky when I graduated from Westmar, I was looking around. I was looking, did I want to go high school? Did a couple of interviews for some high school jobs. Well, then I saw that there was a job open at Upper Iowa, which is ironically it's kind of in the same area where my dad used to coach before he came to Lamar's back in the 50s. And I saw a job at Upper Iowa University. It was assistant football and head men's and women's track coach. And me being a young guy, I thought, yeah, I can do that. Thinking, geez, I didn't realize, I'm coaching at a college level already. Went in, interviewed. and found out it was a great place to be involved with, and I was lucky enough to get the job. Coached 2 years there, had a great time, learned a ton. Actually, my head coach at Upper Iowa that I coached under was Todd Simonson, who played on Hayden Fry's first Rose Bowl team at Iowa. He was starting middle linebacker for them, and he was my head coach that I got to coach under. Got to meet a lot of people because of him. Got to learn a lot of things. Also had a great athletic director at Upper Iowa named Mike McCready. And Mike McCready was probably one of the best wrestlers ever in the state of Iowa. He was an Olympic qualifier. He was a Pan Am Games champion. He wrestled at UNI. So, I was around some truly special people at Upper Iowa in those 2 years I was there. It was hard to leave. But I decided I wanted to get into the high school ranks. After being in the college ranks for a couple of years, I decided I just wasn't a real big fan of going out recruiting. So it was a great experience for me, but definitely was a great launching board for me in my career.
And that leads us to where you spent 22 seasons as the head coach, but of course a number of seasons, 6 years, serving as an assistant under Coach Dick Null, the late Coach Dick Null, and you were able to start there in 1988 for the Central Lyon George Little Rock football team. And just before we get into your years at Central Lyon George Little Rock, tell us what it was like to work under Coach Dick Null for the time that you were able to.
Well, growing up in Lamar's, I knew Dick Null. I knew who. I guess we didn't know each other personally, but I knew who he was. He also was Lamar's product, and I'd heard my dad talk about him numerous times. Me growing up, following, I was in junior high about the time that they were winning the championship in '76 and '77, and I knew a lot about Central Lyon. I didn't know Coach Null. But from the day I met Coach Null to the day I had to say goodbye to Coach Null when he passed away a few years ago, I learned a lot from him. I learned probably 95% of my football. I learned from him. I learned how to deal with people and how to coach. The people side of it from my dad, a lot of it from Coach Null, but Coach Null was a tremendous impact in my life as a coach. He was a great guy, did everything that you could ask as a head coach, challenged you a lot, made me challenge me as a coach yearly, and was not one of those guys that just wanted a bunch of yes men around, which was huge, and great guy. Obviously he was the one that started this program and got it going the right way. Luckily he was able to luckily I was able to carry it on after he got done.
So I'm assuming for the years that you spent underneath him as an assistant, but also, of course, throughout the rest of his life, I'm sure he taught you a numerous amount of things. As you said, 90 to 95% of your football knowledge coming from him. What would be one thing, not necessarily the best thing, because, I mean, that's probably hard to put into one big thing, but what maybe is one thing that Coach Null was able to teach you that you thought was really important for your football coaching career?
Well, you'll probably smile when I say this, because you probably have heard it, or you've either heard it from other sports announcers or coaches, or thought it yourself as you were announcing our games maybe. But he always taught me the thing I always liked, that he and I always stayed pat on, was don't worry about what everybody else is doing. Don't jump into all the fads. How many years did we do? We did stuff that nobody. Oh, we don't do that anymore. We don't run the ball anymore. We got to go spread. Up until the end, when I finally buckled under a little bit. We were an option team. We were a wishbone team. We were a team that got things accomplished and doing it the way we like to do it. And that was one thing he always said: don't stray from what you believe in. Don't stray just because somebody else is doing this. Feel comfortable with what you do. And we finally, just because of the type of kid we had, over the years, we finally, towards the end of my run, we kind of made some adjustments, but we won a lot of games doing things the way we like to do them, and that was always one thing I admired about Coach Null. Do it your way, and feel comfortable doing it your way.
Well, yeah, and it was so successful for so many years, as proven in your record, 170 wins and only 70 losses in those 22 seasons. And of course, it worked with Coach Null, winning those championships back in the 70s as well. What do you think made that offense so successful for so many years?
Well, first of all, everybody wants to try to reinvent the wheel from every year, and if you can block, it still comes down in high school football. You got to block, you got to tackle, and you got to have kids that can understand, and they can go 100 miles an hour. That's the great thing about that system that we ran is you don't have to. There's not a lot of learning curve in it. You learn it from the time you're in junior high, and you keep it from there on out, and that's what made us so successful. You block, you tackle, you get to where you need to get, and you can play 100 miles an hour. We took the thinking out of it for the kids. The kids didn't have to think. We did the thinking for them. They just got to do the playing, and that's what we always felt was the key to it.
When you were able to take over the head coaching job at Central Lyon after Coach Null retired, what was just your feeling for taking over for a coaching legend like Coach Null was, and how were you able to fill his shoes? Was there some fear for you when you started coaching here at Central Lyon, George Little Rock, as the head coach?
No, there wasn't any fear, because just for the fact that I felt like he really prepared me well. Coach Null was big on, you're going to coach. He'd tell me when I was assistant coach, a lot of years I coached defense when I was coaching. When he was when I was still his assistant, I was one of the defensive coaches. Then one year he told me, you got to coach the offensive line. One year he told me I got to do the running back sort of, and he kind of moved you around. So I felt comfortable at all areas coaching as far as all position wise. There wasn't a lot of nervousness about it. Obviously, there's always going to be a little nervousness when you coach your first game as a head coach, but I felt like I was really prepared because of the 6 or 7 years I got to study under Coach Null, and it was a great situation. It was one of those situations where it was always funny, because he always told me, and I put it in the paper a few times back in the day. He said, we got a good thing going, don't screw it up. And that was always a thing that we talked about. Every once in a while he'd walk by me after we had a good year, and he'd say, well, you didn't screw it up. And that was always kind of our inside joke.
That's awesome. And for you, as we talked about the 2006 state title, but the 5 state championship games that you were able to coach in, what made those teams so special that you were able to coach for? And then, of course, what made the 2006 team more special than some of those other teams that you were able to get to state?
Well, to kind of go forward, then go backwards, all those teams had tremendous heart. And the biggest reason those teams were all good is because they were tight. And none more tight than the 2006 team, but they were all tight. People can say all they want about this or that, or coaches can sit and pat themselves on the back for winning this and winning that championship. It all comes down to your relationships your kids have with each other, your relationships your coaches have with each other. And everybody's going to have, every team you see win championships, I don't care where you're talking, but mainly high school, everybody's going to have 3 or 4 studs. It's the other kids that you have to make sure are playing at a high level. Coach Schneider, who was my strength and conditioning coach for all those years, and I was head coach, our biggest thing was always, who's our 20th strongest kid? We kind of got that from Coach Doyle from Iowa years and years ago. Who's our 20th strongest kid? If your 20th strongest kid is a pretty strong kid, you're going to be a pretty dang good team. And the 1 year we won the state championship, and a couple years after that, our 20th strongest kid was Brian Caparis, who was our starting middle linebacker, all-district kid. He was our 20th strongest kid. So we knew we had a great support system around those kids. But now to kind of backtrack, all those teams are special in all their own different ways. You start with our 96 team that was in the state championship. That's the game. if there was a game that I had to look back at and think that we had the perfect storm to win the championship and we didn't get it done, that was the year, the '96 team. We had an extra point blocked right before or a field goal blocked right before halftime. They ran it back for a touchdown, and we lose 10-7. And Roger Meyer, who undoubtedly was just an incredible running back at Central Lyon, had over 1,000 yards in the playoffs. We had size, we had speed, we had ability. That was a team that was amazingly, set up around Roger Meyer, set up around a couple of other real studs, and was able to play. Our '99 team, you might still remember teams. The '99 team was built around Curtis Even, and we had 2 or 3 really good kids in that class, but a whole bunch of really good support system guys around there. Then you get into the '06, '07, and '08 teams. You got to start with the Nate DeYoungs of the world and those kind of guys. But as I said, then you're talking the '96 and '97 and '98 teams were so tight. I've never been around teams that were tighter than those guys, and they were incredibly tight. They were with each other on and off the field. They were best friends. They had a blast every time they did anything, and they just made life fun around here. And they put a lot on themselves, but we could stick a lot on them, and it was fun to have those guys. And unfortunately, some of the teams that didn't make it to state championship are forgotten, but those are some of our better players that we've ever had, even on those teams.
Plenty of excellent players throughout the years of your coaching career and before, of course. Going into that 3-year period when you were in the state championship game, 3 straight years, 2006 to 2008, how special was it to get there for 3 straight years? Obviously, the first year being the pinnacle of it all, winning it. But how special was it to get there 3 straight years? And as you said, the 2016 being a really tight-knit group of guys. How special was that group for those 3 years?
Well, it's funny because we kind of knew we had a good situation, like maybe get done. In '06, we played Lamar's. And we were beaten in that game. And I had a couple of my old college buddies coach at Lamar's, and it was funny because Leroy Wickers, one of the Lamar's coaches, said to me that after that game, he shook my hand and we were mad. We got beat. That's the only loss we had that year, and we got beat. And I said, and he said, "Boy, you're gonna be right in the thick of things for the next 3 years." And it was funny because how poetic it was that he said that, because we were, it's special. Well, the only thing that stinks is the team that we had to play 3 years in a row. Any team in the state of Iowa besides that team not around, we probably win 3 in a row. James Morris, a few of those guys they had there, but mainly James Morris and Solon Spartans. We were able to beat them in 2006. I firmly feel I'll go to my grave thinking we should have beat them in 2007 if we weren't beat up. We were really beat up that year. And then 2008 too. Our starting quarterback plays a game, plays 2.5 games with a torn ACL. So not to come up with excuses, but unbelievable games. I got a ton of respect for that program. Solon, Kevin Miller, and I are very good friends. Talk a lot. And I just talked to him recently because he's retired. He retired as coach there. But those 3 years were incredible. They were incredible, not so much for maybe not just for football, but they were incredible for our schools. They were incredible for Central Lyon and George Little Rock. I mean, just the atmosphere that we had around here was truly special, and just you almost felt like you were in a college type situation during those years with those kids, and the way they were thought of around the communities, and the way we're able to really unite everybody at that point.
Yeah, those Solon Spartan teams were really something special. As you said, James Morris played at Iowa after his time at Solon, and I think another guy, Colin Sleeper, kind of comes to mind that played for them and had a little bit of time at Iowa as well. But yeah, and also their place kicker kicked for Iowa too. Yeah, so a lot of good talent there, but the fact that you guys were able to win in 2006, and then of course injuries and different things happened the next 2 years, but the 2006 one, that, as knowing how good that team was, that probably has to feel pretty special to have just won that one in 2006, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was. You don't realize how hard it is to win championships until you're right smack dab in the middle of it. But everything has to happen. You got to have things happen exactly the way they need to happen. And for that team, it's such a special team. And it's funny, all the people that are involved with that team, the coaches, the players, the managers, everybody remembers everything about that season. We can get together in 10 minutes, 3 or 4 of us, whether it be coaches or players or whatever, and we can talk about those games like they were yesterday. Mitch Lupkus, who coaches here now, was on that team, was a very important part of that team, along with Reed Gertis, who also coaches here right now too. And we can sit down and we can sit in my office and we can talk about specific plays, times of the games, whatever during that game or during that season. But it's just incredible, that group of kids, and what they accomplished and just how much fun we had doing it.
So you finished your career as a head football coach with 170 wins. Was there any thought in your mind about your record, and did you ever think about sticking around to try and get to 200, or was that just not really in your mind at all?
Nah, that didn't factor in at all. I wasn't even concerned. I didn't really even know what the win-loss thing was up until I had to figure it out for whatever various publications or whatever when it came time to getting out. But no, I wasn't in the game. I wasn't in the game of football for that. I'm in the game of football because you're able to be around the best team sport ever invented. You got to be impactful for young kids and form relationships with them. And those are the huge reasons why I wanted to be a football coach and why I felt so comfortable being a football coach and how much fun I had doing it. I just knew that when the time was the time, I knew I was going to feel it, and I was not going to be pressured into staying longer. I have a lot of respect for some of these guys, but when some of those coaches just hang around for records, or some of those coaches just hang around for another win or another notch in their belt, and they're in their 70s and their late 60s, 70s, 80s. I just feel like they're almost doing a disservice to the kids. I think they sometimes tarnish their thoughts by sticking around maybe a little bit longer than they should. I just felt like when I felt like I had enough, and I felt like when Coach Knoll gave me the program, he was able to give me a good program and told me don't screw it up. When I felt there was coaches in our program that needed to take a step up and move to the next level, and I was able to give the program to somebody that I truly respected and loved, in Coach Eben, I wanted to do the same thing. And I think of coaching. I think of Coach Eben as a coaching mate. I also think of Coach Eben as almost one of my football sons. I've known him forever, and I felt comfortable giving him the program. And it was funny because one of the first things I said was, "Don't screw it up."
Yes, that was going to be my next question. Was your level of comfort giving it to Coach Eben as the next coach? I'm sure was much more comfortable knowing that he played under you for those 4 years, that you were the head coach for, and you said when going to state with one of the teams that he was on as well. So obviously there was probably a good level of comfort knowing what Coach Eben had done for the program in his playing days, but of course as his coaching days as well.
Yep, felt very comfortable. Coach Eben was a great player for us, one of the best I ever had, and I loved his intensity. I loved his attitude. I loved his enthusiasm. I loved it as a player, and I really loved it as his head coach when he was one of my assistants. Brought a lot to our program. I knew it was time for him to have a head football job. He had a great pedigree at college. Got to play under Coach Young at USF, and I just felt very, very comfortable giving it to Coach Eben. And we had some teams that were really talented right up to when he took over, and then we knew that we were going to maybe have a few less kids, but I knew that it was great. He would make a smooth transition, and he's done an outstanding job and has unbelievable things coming in the future here that you'll be able to see how great of a coach he is.
Absolutely. Looking forward to watching Central Lyon George Little Rock football in the future. Hopefully things aren't delayed for the high school football season as it has been for a lot of the summer sports, as this pandemic has brought on, of course, but hopefully we'll be able to get sports back in a more permanent fashion here for the next in the next month or two with baseball and stuff, and then of course football. So, Coach, before we dig into the rest of your coaching and teaching and so forth, it was announced late this past year, 2019, that you were going to be inducted into the Coaches Hall of Fame in the state of Iowa. First of all, I just want to hear your thoughts on that and what kind of an honor it is for you.
Well, it's a real honor I really cherish. When you get recognized by your peers, it's always special. I've always had a huge place in my heart for the Iowa Football Coaches Association. I think it's probably one of the best organizations I've ever been involved with. I've been involved with a lot of organizations over the years, sports-wise around here, and that's definitely one that is the most active. It's definitely one that has the most prestige as far as football goes, and it's truly a big honor that I really feel.
With that 170 record that we talked about, those 5 trips to the state championship game, and then of course the win in 2006, did you ever think that this was a possibility in your career? Probably not early on, maybe, but as you kind of got later in your coaching years, did you think that this could be a possibility for you?
To be honest with you, I never really thought about it. I happened to run into one of the coaches that was on the selection committee a couple of years ago, and he told me that my name had been discussed, and that's about the first time I'd ever really thought about it. And I just kind of forgot about it after he talked to me about it too. And then I was contacted the next fall after that, and by him, that was told that I'd got on it. No, it's something you really don't think about. You're so busy coaching and being immersed in the sport, you don't even really think about it, and you don't really think about record, thing like that. The only record you're concerned with is the one for that next season. And you just hope that when you're done with coaching a sport, that you can walk away and said you left that sport in a better position than what it was before you got into it at your school. And I feel like I did that, and I guess maybe this is just a thank you from the Iowa Football Coaches Association saying, hey, good job, you did a great job, we'd like to recognize you.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I'm sure you would definitely credit a lot of the players for getting this honor for you, but I'm sure it still feels good to know that you were able to get this honor and have a successful coaching career and helping a lot of those kids, as you had alluded to. That was the big reason you got into coaching, was for the kids, not for any personal gain.
Oh yeah, it still comes down to the fact that if you're in a good program and you have good kids, you're a direct byproduct of that. And I don't feel like I always say I felt like I hit the coaching jackpot when I became a coach at Central Lyon. There's not a lot. It doesn't. I don't have to go too far away and talk to too many other coaches to find out that we got a special thing going around here, and we always have, and we always will. And it's kind of a hidden secret, and we kind of keep it amongst ourselves in our football community. But yeah, it still comes down to, I've got to work around some unbelievable individuals over the years, coaching wise. Many that are not around anymore at Central Lyon anymore. Besides Coach Null, most of them are still able to. You're still able to see. Losing Coach Null was huge. Just such an inspiration for me as a coach. But Greg Schmidt has just as much to do with my coaching success as anybody that walks the face of the earth. And but it still comes down to, and as Schmidt and I talk to each other every once in a while, it still comes down to the fact that we had some tremendous kids that would buy in, and we had great kids that worked their tails off. And the reason we win games around here is us coaches just try to put them in the right position, but the kids are doing all the heavy lifting.
Coach, obviously, your coaching doesn't just rest at football, as we've alluded to earlier. You also, the girls' track and field coach at Central Lyon, and PE coach as well, and of course, strength and conditioning throughout your career as well. What are those coaching positions like compared to football? Obviously, it's a lot different, but what makes those things different, and maybe in their own way better, or maybe in their own way just you like those things, but maybe just not as much as football. Just describe to us a little bit about that and what you enjoy about those other coaching positions as well.
Well, first of all, as a track coach, I've been involved with track my entire life. I've been involved with track longer than I was involved with football and growing up, and I love it. Obviously, when I first came to Central Lyon, up until I became head football coach, or maybe a few years after that, I was what we called the track coordinator, where I was the head coach of the boys and the girls, and then we had coaches worked under and in all our areas. But up until recently, then that went on, and then Coach Snyder and I obviously split it up, and he took the boys, I took girls, but we worked together. Track is a sport that obviously is extremely important for football, and I've always felt that. I was brought up thinking that, and I think that's one of the biggest reasons why I love track, and the fact that it helps all your other sports. It's a sport that's almost like spring football, and we use track as a training method. But what I'm really happy is that we were always able to be able to really get our kids to buy into the fact that track is an important sport. And I just like track for the fact that it's different than football. It's a different time of the year. It's a nice change of pace, and I really have enjoyed coaching the girls track program, just for the fact that after coaching boys football, football with the boys for so long, it's always just a nice change of pace. I'm kind of a softie when it comes to the girls track program on those girls, but the thing that we've always been prided ourselves on is we coach our girls track program just like we coach our boys track program. I think me being a football coach, and there's a lot of them around the state that do this, but me being as a football coach, I think it's good for the girls to hear a little toughness, be a little tougher. We're maybe not quite as smooth talking as some of the the other coaches they have throughout the season, but I think bringing a little football toughness to the girls track program has helped our program over the years. I think it's really helped all our programs, and I love track. I've always loved track. I always will love track. Probably it's because of the time of the year and things like that too. But I feel like if there's a sport that goes hand in hand with the game of football, is track. And I was always a big advocate for that. I always still am a big advocate for that. I just think that kids need to be out for track if they're going to play football. And that's obviously something I can't say, I can't force. But I guarantee most of my kids, when I was head coach of football, knew how important it was for me to see them on the track every spring. I also am lucky. In 2016, I was able to switch from the elementary PE to the high school and take over the strength conditioning classes too. So, it's been a great transition for me in the fact that I don't coach football, but I get to be around the football players all the time now, and I still get to throw my 2 cents in, whether they want to hear it or not. The kids hear my old stories. They hear, I think they sometimes roll their eyes and smile and listen to Coach Lorenzen talk about his old stories and things like that too. But I'm always a big fan of, I always enjoyed older coaches giving me a little bit of wisdom here and there. And as much as maybe some of these kids don't want to hear it, I try to do that to them.
Yeah, I am sure that is something that they maybe don't want to hear, but I'm sure that they will thank you later for. And let's talk a little bit about some of those teams that you were able to have the state girls championship teams. You had a few of those throughout your career so far as a track coach. Talk a little bit about some of those teams that you were able to get to the state tournament, the state track and field tournament in Des Moines at Drake Stadium. Obviously, a special place to have those tournaments. Talk a little bit about some of those teams and what you were able to accomplish at the state track level.
Well, we've had a lot of fun with track. We've been boys and girls. We've been really successful and won a lot of. We've won a lot of district championships. The boys are on a roll with five district championships in a row. The girls got 2 in a row, and they've had numbers before that. But track's a unique sport in the fact that you may not get your whole team down to state, but you can get a good chunk of your team down to state and every year and have a lot of fun down there. And Iowa track is very highly thought of, and a lot of people think that Iowa track is probably one of the top 10 track states in the United States, which you maybe wouldn't think of with being being in the Midwest and things like that too. But no, we've had a lot of success. It's hard to really talk about everybody girls wise that we've had there, but obviously you got to highlight our 2010 team that won the girls state track championships, first time ever done at Central Lyon, and it was a great time. Had some really good runners on there led by Mary Slicner, Abby Ackerman, a few of them, but we had a very good team that year. We were able to win the state championship, win 3 or 4 different relay championships during that time, and just kind of it real capped off to a really great season. Last year, more recently wise, we were able to win the 4x2 last year down there at state with 4 girls, Reagan Benoit, Sutton Schlumbaum, Ellie Peterson, and Callie Yekel, and that was fun for them because we knew from the beginning of the year that we had a chance to do that, and that's what happens in track. You got a lot of times you can kind of see knowing what's coming back from other schools and things like that too. But it's fun. It's fun. We've had a lot of success. We've won a lot of district championships. Hats off to our girls just for the fact that it's tough. It's the thing today. The thing with kids today is it's easy just not to do something. Track is not easy, and track's not for everybody. But I really appreciate the boys and the girls that come off for track and all the work they do.
Absolutely. You said that 2010 team. Just a couple of notes on that. A couple of school records that were made by that team, including the distance medley. That was Kylie Eckenrod as well as Kayla, is it Couperis?
Couperis,
yep. And Tori Figge and Mary Slicner, setting the school record for 4:13:18. And then the 4x800 meter relay, Brenda Hofer, Becca Ellis, Tori Figge, and Mary Slicner at 9:32:73. So some pretty big records that are still held at Central Lyon. And as you mentioned, the 4x200 meter relay, which I was actually there to watch, they won 46:53 by Sutton Schlumbaum, Reagan Van Wy, Ellie Peterson, and Callie Yekel. Pretty impressive resume for some of those ladies, but as well as you mentioned, the team that won it in 2010. What maybe was the difference between some of the other teams and that team? Obviously, you had a lot of good teams over the years, but what was it about that team that was able to get you over the hump and get you that team championship?
Well, the big thing was they all bought into what they had to do. There was, it's not, some kids are like, well, I don't want to run that. That's too far. I don't want to run 800. I don't want to run the mile. I don't want to run the 2 mile. We had people just step up and say, I'll do it. You do whatever you want to put me in, coach, we'll do. If it meant they had to run 2 800s and 2 400s in a meet, or 2 800s and, whatever. It was a group of girls that they weren't going to be denied. They didn't care. They were led by Mary Slicner, and she had an iron fist on how they were all going to do this. And Abby Ackerman was another one too. Those girls, whatever they had to do, they were going to do. And a perfect example of that is Becca Ellis. Becca Ellis was probably one of the lesser known girls in that team. but went down to state track and got us points in the 3,200 meter run, and then came back around the 4x8, and just everybody found their niche, everybody made their difference, and everybody performed at the highest level they could perform at, and that was a pretty special team.
Absolutely, and of course you are no longer the football coach as we had talked about. You retired from that, but you're still doing girls track. Have you thought about how many more years you'll continue to do that, or are you just kind of waiting to feel that out the same way with football?
Just like I said, yeah, pretty much same thing. I'm enjoying it right now. I'm enjoying my job that I'm doing right now. My thoughts always are, when I feel like it's the time, I'll get out. I'm not going to do it just for the money. I never have ever done. Obviously, you don't coach high school sports for the money because there's not a lot of money involved, but it's all about the passion. Once I lose that passion, or once I lose that desire to want to be there every day, then I'm going to get out of there because I don't want to do disservice to that position.
All right, so you also were a PE coach and still are a PE coach at Central Lyon. What makes you enjoy that side of things? Obviously a little different than coaching. That's kind of more of a required thing than with sports you could choose to go out for or not. What makes you enjoy the PE side of things as well, different than coaching track or coaching football? But what enjoyment is in that for you?
I love coaching. I love teaching PE. I've always loved, no matter if it was kindergartners all the way up to seniors. I love it. I love it just for the fact that kids get to exercise. You get to see them in a social environment. A lot of these teachers don't get to socialize with the kids much during the day. I'm all about socialization, and we spend a ton of time talking every day. I talk to all the kids in the class. We have a lot of fun. Obviously PE I feel like is the best subject around because you get to be outside, you get to be active, you get a like I said, you get a mixture of kids, and I love it. I love it. It's kept my fires going in education for years and years and years, and I just love everything about it, and couldn't see myself coaching or teaching in any other area than the one I love to be in.
You have done different levels of PE throughout your career. For a while you were elementary, middle school, and now you're back at the high school level. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, I was 19 years. I did K through 7 for 19 years, and up until 2016, the year I got out of head football, then I moved to the high school, and we just thought it was good mixture, good change of pace for our PE department, and it's been fun. I love it. I get to coach. I get to teach PE. I get to have strength conditioning classes throughout the day, and I really enjoy helping the kids, working with the kids, and getting to know the kids better.
You mentioned a little bit ago the best weight room in the state of Iowa. Obviously, that was just brand new a few years ago. It's probably been more than a few years ago, just the way time flies.
It's flying by.
Yeah. What has that brought to the table for the athletes, you think, be able to have the convenience of having the weight room actually right next door to the gym? What do you think that's brought to not only the convenience side of things, but also maybe more equipment? What has that brought to the school as a whole?
Well, obviously, it's something we're really proud of. We're able to house probably 100 kids in here easily at one time. It's 6,000 square feet. The nicest thing about it is, back in the day when Coach Snyder and I were doing it, we were having football practice and track practice, and then going to the weight room after that. Kids are getting home 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night. This is so much better for the student athlete. These kids are able to do it during their school day, do it as an actual class, get their workouts in, able to go home after school, after practice, and eat a normal meal with their family and get their homeworks done, and not be doing that at 9, 10 o'clock at night. So it's been huge for our student athletes. It's been good for our non-athletes also. We've had such good success with a lot of non-athletes as we have our athletes in the weight room here, and it's just a tremendous boost for our entire school community, I think.
Yeah, it was a big upgrade to the gym. Of course, multiple upgrades have been made over the last few years to continue to keep the school modernized and expand and give you more room. Because I remember being in some of your classes and, of course, Coach Deitch's classes as well. And we had gone over to the weight room at the activity center, and the idea of trying to spread out and have as much room was not very ideal. But now with the new weight room, I'm sure that's helped out with that a lot. As you said, over 100 kids at one time.
Oh yeah, it's unbelievable, and it's a great atmosphere, and it's a lot of fun to come to work every day.
What is some advice that you would have for somebody that maybe is going into the coaching field, or perhaps also being a physical education teacher, which I'm sure there are plenty of kids that are thinking about maybe doing that as a potential career? What would you say for them for some advice?
Well, I'd say first of all, as a coach, make sure you're getting in for the right reasons. It's not about you. It's about the kids. You know, you're not. It's not my team. It's our team. It's not my athlete. It's our athlete. You know, it's not my. It's the only time the coach. The only time the coach should take credit for the team is the losses. Otherwise, it's all about the kids. If you don't want to make it all about the kids, don't go into coaching. If you want to, especially high school coaching, you want to make it about. Don't make it about yourself. If you want it to be about yourself, then you probably got to go be a pro coach or something along lines of that too. But get into coaching for the right reasons. Get into coaching because you love coaching with kids. You love working with kids. You love watching them progress as athletes, and you want to do more than just teach them the sport that they're playing. You want to teach them a little bit about life. You know, I keep a sign in my office that I've had in my office for I don't know how many years. It's all weathered, and it was written by Billy Graham, and it says, "A coach will impact more people in a year than the average person does in a lifetime." That's why you get into coaching. That's the only reason you should get into coaching, for those reasons. You don't get in for the records. You don't get in for the accolades. You get in. Those come along with if you're doing your other job. You get in it because you want to impact kids. That'd probably be my advice.
I think what a lot of people don't maybe understand about coaching is the fact that it's about the kids. Like as much as you can say to them about what you want them to do, run the system or do this or that, they still have to perform, and you still have to show them compassion, especially at the high school level where many kids are still learning their athletic ability and still obviously going to school and all these other things that they have to deal with as well.
Exactly. It's a great profession. It's not for everybody. You better have a significant other that is very willing to give up seeing you a lot, because it takes up a lot of time, but it is very rewarding.
During this COVID-19 pandemic, obviously at least some people have had a lot more free time. Coach, what have you been doing during any extra free time that you've had? Any new hobbies that you've picked up? Any new food that you've tried or cooked up? Anything like that happened during this pandemic?
Well, a couple things. Number one, I've always been a big walker, so that didn't affect me too much. I've always been able to go out and I get my 2 walks in every day, and I've been doing that for years. When you have old football knees, you sometimes can't do any run anymore, so I do a lot of walking. And I was lucky enough a couple years ago. I have a weight room in my house, so I was able to keep I like lifting weights, like doing it at the school with kids or whatever. But I've been able to do that at home and keep me going. And I've even stuck my hand into doing a little cooking and baking. I've gotten a little bit better on the grill. I've gotten a little bit better with trying some different recipes. And then obviously my wife working, she didn't have to stay home. I had a lot of honey-do lists that I got to complete throughout that time also.
Yeah, I'm sure that definitely helped your wife have some ideas of, how can I put my husband to work?
Oh yeah.
I saw a meme the other day that said, I think women invented grilling as a way to get men out of the house to cook.
You got that right.
but we
You
still
got that right.
we still enjoy it. We still enjoy it. So
You got it. You got it.
So, well, Coach, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show today. And you're not on social media at all, are you?
Nope, not a social media guy.
All right. So you can't follow Coach Lorenzen on Twitter or anything like that. So
you can give me a call or stop by and see me. I'm a face-to-face guy.
There you go. That's what we like to hear. I prefer the old methods of communication too, compared to texting and stuff. But unfortunately, that's what our society has become more and more of.
Right. You got that right.
Well, Coach, again, thank you for joining us, and I hope your family continues to stay safe during this pandemic. And good luck to you in your future coaching years and your future teaching years as well.
Thanks, Schuby. I appreciate it. Fun talking to you.
You bet. That's going to do it for the Schuby Show today. Make sure to join us again next time, and thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to The Schuby Show. We hope you mildly enjoyed yourself with more never-ending nonsense with yours truly. For more content, go to the website, theschubyshow.com. Get the show on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, YouTube, Stitcher, and TuneIn Radio. We'll see you next time.